Hello, I'm Yazi, and this is my channel. A place where every box has a story. Today, we're in the future, thousands of years after the Earth was swallowed up by its own sun. In a solar system on the edge of the known galaxy lies a planet filled with thick vegetation and sprawling with jungles. Animals soar through the sky as majority of them have adapted to flying or gliding to hide, to catch prey, or maybe just make their lives easier to move around in such an abundance zone. Tucked away in the mountains in the north side of the megacontinent is a highly advanced, technologically driven city called Vokoria. Welcome to the city that never sleeps. As we move through the city streets, we see a young man writing codes and running diagnostics on the central AI grid. He has a look of worriness, as if there is an error that cannot be fixed or out of his range of skills to be fixed. Moving his hands frantically on the floating screens above his wrist, he can't seem to understand why they are all blinking red. The grid starts to ripple with sharp electrical sounds. More and more red screens. Blinking with an act of urgency, the ground beneath him cracks. The young man turns off all the screens as he decides to sit down, putting both hands over his face, holding back the tears as he hears, "Simulation over. Test results for Central AI Engineer failed." A dream of a young man, a dream since childhood, a dream to make enough to make his family proud, a dream to do more than just survive, crushed in a matter of minutes. Studying while working full-time has taken its toll on this young man, from the bags underneath his eyes, to the burnt marks on his arms, to the scars on his fingers. As he makes his way through the underbelly of the city, he is bombarded by hologram ads of quick ways of making money or borrowing money made easy. Looking up, he sees flying cars that hover just over everyone's heads, and bright neon lights that almost blind anyone that looks at it for just a bit too long. This young man enters a broken down brick building, a strong contrast to the highly technologically infrastructure around the home. Creaky wooden door reveals an old couple in their late 80s, his grandparents. Seeing the look on the young man's eyes, quickly come to comfort him, giving a hug and a warm meal. As they finish up eating, the young man picks up a picture of a tall, broad-shouldered, stubbly, bearded man. On this man's coat, it reads, "Vokoria's head engineer." Young man takes his time looking at the picture, gently putting it down, and heads to bed for the night. Out of nowhere, the emergency broadcast system blares through the streets. An immediate evacuation. The young man springs into action, going straight into his grandparents' room, putting them in the family car, rushing to make sure he had all the medication and some water for the long trip. The young man jumps into the car that is hovering one foot in the air, as the grandma immediately starts to fly out of the neighborhood. As they start their ascension, it is clear the catastrophe that has happened. The side of the mountain has collapsed on the central AI grid. Animals fly left and right from the dashboard. It seems as if everyone and everything is making a dash to safety. The young man's phones ring, his instructor asking for any volunteers to stop the central AI grid from blowing up with the force of a small nuke. Save the city or save his family. The young man questions his ability. Is he even good enough to be of any help? Will he just get in everyone's way and becomes more of a problem? These thoughts of doubt race through his head as a familiar voice comes to him and simply asks, "Will you be able to sleep, knowing you could have done something?" The young man quietly asked to be dropped off near the central office. The grandparents, about to yell at him for this decision, look into his eyes as they quietly turn around and quickly accept the request. The young man runs over to an engineer on the grid. With some training, the young man pulls up multiple hologram screens, doing basic tasks by checking the wires, making sure everything's on, things are plugged in the right areas, doing a simple checklist they teach you at trade school. With crackling sounds giving warnings to the danger, An explosion goes off to the north. An engineer is pinned and seems to be reaching for something. The young man runs over to help, as he notices there's no way to pull this engineer free. As he tries to remove the rubble of metal and rocks, it's become clear this engineer is stuck. They make eye contact as the engineer's final words are, "Find a way to revert." Grunts in pain. "The power." With no one else in sight, the young man runs to the main computer. Hologram screen fills the room, hundreds of monitors blinking red. With a loud, piercing horn coming from the emergency evacuation, the young man feels the anxiety of failing, of how dumb it was to leave the safety of his grandparents, and realize if he fails, everyone dies. Everyone. Taking a deep breath in and slowly letting it out, the horn sounds snap him out of it. Throwing out the basic checklist, the young man is finding secure routes to take to maybe release the built-up energy. No success. Brute forcing and releasing valves to cool off the grid. No success. The last option comes to mind. Something that no one should do, unless, is manually releasing the core and flying it up as high as possible. The city will have no AI to help them in their daily lives. The city will have no power to protect them from the wild, or any powers to run any daily comfort. However, the city has a chance of standing, and that was all the young man needed. With quick hand motions, the core is released. A glowing blue cube the size of his hands float across the room. The young man grabs it and puts it in his armpits. A slight burning sensation runs over his body that is quickly ignored from the adrenaline. Taking a company vehicle, the young man puts the coordinates to fly directly up without stopping. As he manages to turn off all safety equipment, the car flies higher and higher as a burst of colors fill the air, from neon green, blues, and magentas. The young man looks up and smiles.